The last time my best friend called me, she told me I was jealous because I skipped her $10,000 birthday bash to sit beside my dying grandfather. And 2 years later, she left a $50,000 check on my porch without a word. But I need to start at the beginning, back in a freezing hospital room in Pittsburgh, when I was 20. I was sitting on the edge of my grandfather's bed in the ICU, painting his nails the way my grandmother used to. The machines hummed and beeped around me, and every time the monitors slowed, I thought my heart might stop with his. My parents had died in a car accident when I was 8, so Grandpa Henry wasn't just family, he was my entire world. That was when my phone buzzed against my thigh. A call. I didn't even need to look at the screen to know who it was. Hey, Bianca's voice rang out, bubbly, careless. So what are you wearing to my party tomorrow night? Her 21st birthday. The one she'd been hyping on Instagram for months. The one her parents were reportedly dropping 10 grand on. I swallowed hard. I don't think I can come. There was a pause, then the sharp inhale of outrage. Are you serious? She snapped. What are people gonna think when my best friend doesn't show up? You have to come. My granddad's dying, Bianca. The words broke out of me before I could stop them. I hadn't told anyone outside of family, hadn't even posted about it. But instead of silence, instead of sympathy, she cut me off. Oh my gosh. Stop. Now you're making my birthday about you. Her voice dripped with disgust. Do you even realize how much my parents spent? $10,000. On me. And you're just gonna bail? Admit it, you're jealous because you're broke and I'm turning 21 first. My AirPods were in, thank God. Grandpa couldn't hear a word of the venom spilling out of her. My hand shook as I hung up. Seconds later, the text started flooding in. Selfish. Drama queen. Some of us actually have lives worth celebrating. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I did something petty. Maybe even cruel. I made a group chat with everyone in our friend circle, except Bianca. And then I dropped the screenshots. Within minutes, my phone lit up again. This time it was MIA, one of our closest mutuals. Her voice was soft when I answered. Babe, I'm so sorry about your granddad. Anne? Bianca? She's cancelled. But listen, I have an idea. It's evil. Like, deliciously evil. That's how it began. Within an hour, the hospice waiting room was filling with the chatter of girls who had ditched Bianca's party planning in favor of something real, my grandfather's last celebration. Forget her birthday, MIA said, standing in the center like some kind of ringleader. We're making sure Henry gets the send-off he deserves. Tears stung my eyes. I didn't even realize until that moment how much I'd been holding everything in. And then Sienna chimed in. I'll make a Facebook event. Private for now, but we'll open it up. People should know who he was. My mom owns that catering company, added Tori. We'll donate everything. Ashley offered to coordinate transportation for his old war buddies. Jess's boyfriend had a jazz quartet that would play for free. And me? I just sat there in stunned silence, watching the girls Bianca always claimed were her loyal crew rally around my grandfather instead. The stories about Bianca's party kept leaking into the chat. Her cousin admitted she didn't even want to go. Classmates whispered, "Did you hear? Henry raised her alone? Wasn't he a war hero?" The answer was yes. Yes to all of it. And for once, the spotlight was shifting. By Thursday, Bianca was posting panicked stories on Instagram. Reminder, my party is VIP only. Guest list required. Quality over quantity. Intimate vibes only. Translation, people weren't coming. Meanwhile, the hospice common room was transforming. Hundreds of battery-powered candles. Memory boards covering decades. Flowers cut straight from Grandpa's garden. The night before the party that wasn't he, I woke up in the stiff vinyl chair beside his bed. His eyes were open, watery but kind. "Morning, Pumpkin," he whispered. I couldn't speak. Just squeezed his hand while my chest ached. The nurses helped me dress him in his best cardigan, the one my grandma had knitted for him 40 years ago. His fingers shook as I buttoned it, and he tried to speak, but stopped halfway through. "I might not see." "You will," I lied, fixing his collar. "You're the strongest person I know." The next night, the common room glowed like something holy. The jazz quartet played low and sweet. His old students, his war buddies, his neighbors, one by one, they filed in. Each face made his eyes shine with tears. "All this fuss for me," he kept whispering, voice thick. "You deserve everything," I whispered back. And then, right as I thought we'd finally beaten Bianca at her own cruel game, my phone exploded with notifications. It was her. "Where is everyone? Did you take them?" Even my cousin ditched. "You did this. You ruined me." But the truth? I hadn't ruined her. Not yet. Because at 9:23 that night, the doors burst open, and there she was, birthday tiara, designer dress, mascara streaked down her face. And that moment was just the beginning. Because I thought her cruelty peaked that night. I thought her storming into my grandfather's final celebration would be the worst of it. But I was wrong. So wrong. The moment Bianca stormed into that hospice common room, the entire place froze. The jazz quartet stopped mid-song, forks clinked against plates, and 100 eyes turned toward the door. She stood there, glittering tiara tilted, her designer heels clicking against the tile. Her mascara streaked down her face like black rivers. "How dare you!" she screamed. An old woman near the dessert table, someone's grandmother, set down her coffee with shaking hands. "Young lady, this is a celebration of life. Please show some respect." Bianca's eyes darted from the candles to the memory boards, the medals, the crowd that was supposed to be hers. "This is you ruined," she spat. "You ruined everything. And then, my grandfather." Sweet Henry, frail as glass but still himself, patted the chair beside him. "You must be Bianca," he said gently. "I saved you some cake." The room went dead quiet. Everyone watched. For one breathless second, I thought she might sit down. Instead, her chest heaved, and she bolted. At the door, she whipped around and screamed, "Just wait. You think this is funny? You'll pay for this. I swear it." And then she was gone. I should have shrugged it off. She'd always been dramatic. Always had to win. But the way she said revenge, the way she emphasized "you'll pay," my skin crawled. The next morning, my phone nearly jumped off the nightstand from how hard it buzzed. 47 missed calls. A voicemail that made my stomach drop. Her voice was cold. Controlled. "My mom already called the hospice board about your little stunt. Enjoy Grandpa's last days with restrictions. You wanted to humiliate me? Now I'm making it official." I sat frozen, phone pressed to my ear. And sure enough, an hour later, the hospice director knocked on Grandpa's door with a stack of forms. My pulse hammered as she flipped through them, an official complaint, signatures, accusations. She glanced at me, then at my grandfather, who was sleeping peacefully. For a terrifying second, I thought she'd enforce it. That would lose the only freedom we had left. But instead, she tore the forms in half. "They're not worth the paper they're written on," she said quietly. "Your grandfather taught my daughter 30 years ago. Some things matter more than donations." I blinked. "Donations?" She sighed. "The Whitmores donate heavily here. More than most families. You need to be careful. They have influence." The name hit me like ice water. Whitmore. Bianca's family. Of course. For the next 3 days, I barely left Grandpa's side. His grip on my hand was getting weaker every hour. Sometimes I read him stories that his old students mailed in. Other times, I just sat there in silence, listening to his breathing change. MIA brought me coffee every morning, sat in the corner, said nothing, just was there. That silence was louder than anything Bianca could post. But then, Thursday morning, I checked my phone. Bianca had gone nuclear. She'd posted a story. Some people use their dying relatives for attention. Pathetic. Within 10 minutes, everyone unfollowed her. Screenshots spread like wildfire. She deleted it, but the damage was done. Even her own cousin texted me, "She's getting worse. Be careful." That night, Grandpa squeezed my hand and whispered something strange. Bianca's family, broken. Saw it at conferences years ago. His voice was raspy, hard to understand. I recorded it on my phone, not realizing those would be his last coherent words about anything beyond us. The hospice billing office called later. Someone had tried to cancel Grandpa's insurance authorization. They traced the number back to Whitmore Pharmaceuticals, Bianca's mother's company. The clerk sounded uneasy. Said it wasn't the first time they'd seen irregularities tied to the Whitmores. That's when my stomach turned. This wasn't just a spoiled rich girl being cruel. This was something uglier. Bigger. And then, as if fate wanted to rub salt in, the next morning a delivery arrived. A single white rose. The card read, "For the soon-to-be orphan. B." I stared at the paper until my vision blurred. The security guard saw my face, pocketed the card. "Keep it if you need it later." This, he crosses a line. Crosses a line. He had no idea how many lines were about to be crossed. Because that was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every time Grandpa's breathing changed, I jolted awake, convinced it would be his last. By dawn, I was pacing the hospice hallway like a ghost. The overnight nurse found me staring at the vending machine without seeing it. She pressed a cup of tea into my hands. "It's called Cheney Stokes," she explained softly. The irregular breathing. His body's winding down. Her words felt like a blade. I went back to his room, sat down, and held his hand. He was barely conscious, his chest rising in stuttered waves. But then, out of nowhere, his eyes opened. Clearer than they had been in weeks. Behind the water heater, he whispered, squeezing my hand tight. "Basement. Papers. Be careful." I froze. "What papers?" But he just smiled faintly, squeezed 3 times, our code for "I love you," and closed his eyes again. It jolted me back to a memory I'd buried years ago. When I was 9, I'd fallen off my bike and split my knee open. I was bawling on the driveway when Grandpa crouched down beside me. He didn't say, "Don't cry," like other adults. He said, "Look around, pumpkin. Every mark tells a story. Even scars are evidence." Then he cleaned the cut, wrapped it, and made me promise never to throw away proof of what really happened. Back then, I thought he was just being wise. Now, it sounded like he'd been preparing me all along. 3 mornings later, the inevitable came. The monitor beeped differently. His chest stopped moving. His hand went slack in mine. Time of death, 6:52 a.m. The nurses gently pulled the sheet over his face. I didn't move. Couldn't. And that's when I saw them. Bianca. And her mother, Victoria. Standing in the hallway like they owned the place. Victoria was dressed in a full business suit at 7 a.m., pearls gleaming, a smile that wasn't a smile at all. Cold. Calculated. She looked right at me. Tilted her head. And then walked away with her daughter in tow. 3 days later, while I was picking out flowers for the funeral, I got a call from the director of the funeral home. His voice was tense. "Someone called claiming your grandfather owed the Whitmores money. They're contesting the payment." I gripped the phone so hard it nearly cracked. "He doesn't owe them anything." "I know," the director said. "I've known Henry 30 years. Don't worry, I'll handle it. But legally, it's unusual. That night, I drove to Grandpa's house for the first time since he passed. The second I stepped inside, the smell hit me, old coffee and aftershave. It broke me. His cardigan was still draped over his chair. His slippers still lined up by the bed. But I forced myself to go downstairs. To the basement. To the water heater. Sure enough, behind it was a metal filing cabinet with a padlock. My hand shook as I dragged it into the light. Bolt cutters from the garage made quick work of the lock. Inside were 7 manila folders. Each one marked with names I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped as I opened the first. Pharmacy records from Whitmore-owned stores. Dosages circled in red. Handwritten notes in Grandpa's shaky scrawl, increased without doctor approval. Dangerous side effects. Another folder showed a generic medication swapped to brand name, the cost skyrocketing 400%. Margins filled with his handwriting, exploitation. Fraud. Patterns repeat. My breath caught in my throat. He hadn't just been my guardian. He'd been investigating them. MIA came over that afternoon, found me hunched over the kitchen table surrounded by papers. She picked up a folder, read a name out loud, and went white. "That's my aunt," she whispered. "She died last year after switching pharmacies. They kept changing her meds, and she got confused. So confused." Her voice broke. I realized then, this wasn't just about Bianca being cruel. This wasn't teenage drama. This was bigger. Deadlier. And it wasn't over. Because that night, the estate lawyer called. His voice was shaky. Someone just filed a claim against Henry's estate. $47,000. Supposed consulting fees to Whitmore Pharmaceuticals. Signed by Victoria herself. Dated the day after he died. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment my life shifted. Because my best friend's birthday drama had just turned into a war against her entire family empire. And I was holding the evidence they'd killed to bury. The week of Grandpa's funeral was a blur. I barely remember eating. Barely remember sleeping. What I do remember is Bianca. She showed up wearing a white cocktail dress like it was some twisted runway show. Sat in the back row texting. Every time I choked up during my eulogy, she coughed, loud, exaggerated, fake. Through the chapel window, I could see Victoria's black Mercedes idling in the parking lot, engine running, like she couldn't even be bothered to step inside. After the service, one of Grandpa's old war buddies pulled me aside near the coat rack. His grip on my arm was shaky but firm. Henry was investigating something, he whispered. If anything happens, find Billy Stewart. Social worker at the hospital. He's got the files. My blood ran cold. Because I already had files. And now I had a name. 3 days later, I met Billy at a coffee shop downtown. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Kept scanning the windows, his hands trembling on his cup. He told me Grandpa had reached out to him 6 months ago. They'd been tracking at least 7 suspicious deaths, all elderly patients at Whitmore pharmacies. Each one had their meds changed without a doctor's sign-off. Each estate drained by medical debt before they died. Billy shoved a folder across the table. I've been documenting everything. But you have to be careful. They've got connections everywhere. I wanted to ask more, but he was already glancing over his shoulder, already packing up. Don't trust anyone, he muttered before leaving. That night, I found out just how serious he was. I was in the grocery store, picking up milk, when someone grabbed my arm so hard I yelped. I turned, and there was Victoria Whitmore. Perfect hair, expensive perfume, but her eyes were steel. Her voice was low and venomous. Your grandfather was a meddling old fool. And you? You're following in his footsteps. If you don't drop this, you'll lose more than a house. My throat went dry. The pharmacist behind the counter froze, watching the whole thing. And when Victoria finally stormed off, the woman slipped me a folded note with my prescription bag. I didn't open it until I was in the car. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly tore it in half. Forced to change prescriptions for elderly customers. I have records if you need them. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd pass out. The very next morning, my lawyer called. His voice was tight. Victoria filed for power of attorney over your grandfather's estate. Claims you're too unstable from grief to manage it. I nearly dropped the phone. She's trying to steal everything. You'll need to appear in court in 3 days, he said. If you don't, she could win by default. That night, I went back to Grandpa's house. Sat in his garden, watering his half-dead tomato plants because it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. His old gardening journal was on the bench. I flipped it open, expecting notes about fertilizer. Instead, in shaky pencil, he'd written, VW visited again today. Threatened nursing home if I don't cooperate. Must protect others from her. I couldn't breathe. I barely slept. And when my phone buzzed at 2 a.m., my heart nearly stopped. It was a text from an unknown number. This is Linda Wheatmore. I need to talk to you about my mom. Linda. Bianca's younger sister. 19. The one who never spoke much, always hiding behind designer clothes. She said she'd found something in her mother's office, emails about targeting elderly customers who own property. People like my grandfather. She begged me to meet her at the college library. When I got there the next morning, Linda was in a back study room, shaking so hard she could barely push a flash drive across the table. There are lists, she whispered. She calls them Phase 1 through Phase 3. Phase 3 means terminal. Your grandfather was marked Phase 3. Her eyes filled with tears. There are 6 other names on the list. 6 people who don't even know they're being targeted. I sat there, staring at the tiny piece of plastic in my hand, realizing I was holding the kind of evidence people kill to bury. And I had no idea yet how far Victoria would go to silence me. The competency hearing was supposed to be routine. Just me, my lawyer, and Victoria's baseless claim that I was too unstable to manage Grandpa's estate. But when I walked into the courthouse, Victoria was already there, flanked by 3 strangers. They swore under oath they'd seen me acting erratically. One claimed I screamed at people in a parking lot. Another said I talked to myself in grocery aisles. None of it true. The judge pressed for dates, times, anything concrete. They stumbled. Their stories didn't match. He didn't dismiss the case, but he didn't grant her power either. Instead, he set a full hearing for 2 weeks later. As I walked out, I noticed a man in the back row. Detective Ray. He caught my eye and nodded, like he knew. Like he'd been watching all along. That night, I finally plugged in Linda's flash drive. My stomach turned as I scrolled through files. Spreadsheets labeled Estate Acquisition Project. Columns listing names, addresses, property values. Notes about medication adjustment schedules. Every single person had their med switched 6 to 8 months before death. Every single estate drained. And there was Grandpa's name. Highlighted in red. Phase 3, terminal. The next days blurred into chaos. More families started reaching out. Each with the same story, sudden declines after switching to Whitmore pharmacies. Bank accounts wiped. Homes sold off. We built a group. Then a website. Whitmore Victims United. Within 48 hours, over 100 families uploaded their evidence. Victoria responded with lawsuits. Cease and desists. A private investigator parked outside Mia's apartment, photographing me through windows. I walked right up to his car at a red light, banged on the window. He admitted on camera he'd been hired to make me look unstable. We sent the footage to Detective Ray. He didn't even blink. Just said, "Thank you. This helps." And then, the FBI called. Agent Sarah Kim. She told me Grandpa had reached out months ago. Back then, he didn't have enough to prove anything. But now? With the files, the flash drive, the whistleblowers? This wasn't just fraud. It was murder. They raided Whitmore Pharmaceuticals at dawn. Neighbors filmed Victoria being led out in silk pajamas and handcuffs. Within hours, every news station was playing it on repeat. But even handcuffed, she smirked. Like she still thought she'd win. At trial, the evidence piled higher than anyone expected. Pharmacists testified through tears about being forced to change prescriptions. Whistleblowers handed over emails. Linda herself took the stand, voice shaking as she admitted her mom had trained her since childhood to befriend kids whose families had assets. And then came the video. Security footage from Victoria's office. Her voice, clear as day, reading Grandpa's medical notes aloud. 3 weeks at this dosage. Then increase by 40%. Heart failure by week 8. Perfect. The jury only needed 3 hours. Guilty. On everything. 18 murders. 43 attempted murders. 127 counts of fraud. When the judge sentenced her to life plus 400 years, the families in the courtroom broke into sobs. Bianca collapsed against the wall, screaming. Linda sat in silence, tears streaming, whispering, "Finally." Me? I just sat there, clutching Grandpa's old notebook in my lap. The one where he'd written, "Don't let anger eat you up. Use the truth. Use the law. They prey on people who are alone." He'd been right. He always was. Months later, I used his estate money to open a non-profit pharmacy for seniors. We named it Henry's Haven. On the wall, I hung his photo in that cardigan Grandma knitted. Sometimes, when I lock up late, I swear I can hear his voice. That's my girl. Keep fighting the good fight. And I know, wherever he is, he's still with me.